Hola a todos, ¿están todos bien ubicados ya? Perfecto. Bueno, primero que todo, darle las bienvenidas a la Fundación Enrique Miralles. Estamos muy contentos del día de hoy, la verdad, porque estamos iniciando el segundo ciclo del programa de Arquitectura para el Bienestar Humano, Urbano y Planetario, el cual es un programa que está siendo impulsado por la Fundación Enrique Miralles en el año de la Capitalidad, bajo tres ejes fundamentales, que el primero fue el salud, en el cual abordamos temáticas relacionadas con neuroarquitectura, con arte y arquitectura, un poco analizar de cómo el diseño arquitectónico puede mejorar la salud de las personas. Y hoy, en esta segunda parte, estamos muy felices de la inauguración, del opening de esta exposición Liquid Architectures, que va relacionado al eje agua, y que en este caso quisimos darle un vuelco y enfocarla a los proyectos que ha diseñado Enrique Miralles en su etapa como arquitecto, tanto con Benedetta como en solitario, y vinculados a la temática de agua, ¿no? Vinculado a cómo el agua puede influir tanto en el diseño arquitectónico de una manera literal, de una manera objetual, o también de una manera más abstracta, ¿no? En paralelo, también estamos muy felices porque a partir de esta inauguración del eje agua, el día de hoy, tenemos también el agrado de tener otro opening con un invitado muy especial, ¿no? Sir Peter Cook, que nos ha visitado desde Inglaterra y nos ha traído su magia con sus dibujos, y que el día de hoy nos va a entregar una pequeña lecture junto con Benedetta, un poquito de su sabiduría para todos los que estamos presenciando el día de hoy este evento. Así que nada, primero que todo darle gracias por la participación del día de hoy, y presento a Sir Peter Cook y a Benedetta. Yes. We have two microphones. Peter? Yes.
And I think I have another one. So it's...
Can you put the presentation of Peter?
Yeah. But I think maybe it's nice to start like a conversation. We didn't rehearse, but Peter told me that he will be very happy to explain things. He has plenty of things to explain. So I just would like to say that Peter Cook was a very important architect person to me. I met him a long time ago when I was studying, and I had the idea that my university was not maybe fulfilling my desires. So I saw there was a summer course in Salzburg, and Peter Cook was teaching there. So I went there, and in that summer course, there were other students. Among the other students, there was a fantastic lady who is Yael, who is here. And she's here now because then she became the wife of Peter Cook. But at the time we didn't know, no? There were many things that had to happen. And we knew Peter as a fantastic architect who had this spirit of investigating, no? Of really doing beautiful drawings, which is something that he really likes to do, and investigating into architecture. So with us, and with many of his students that he was having at the AA at the time, and later at the Bartlett and in many other places, he was really pushing us to find other ways. So I'm very happy. During this year we met. Also, he met Enrique. They taught at the same university in Frankfurt. So they were meeting in Städelschule nearly every 2 weeks because they were both teaching there. So we had a long story together. But the fantastic thing is that Peter is always having this companion together with him, with his love for drawings. So I don't know, I think that here we have your beautiful exhibition downstairs, which we are very happy that we can host. And maybe as a first question, that maybe can be the only question, can you tell us about your relation with drawings? And
Before I do that, I would like to say it's amazing being here. And when you talk about drawing, my drawing, bloody hell, I mean, we're here amongst some amazing drawings. There's a quality of the drawing. Also, I would like to say that it's what is very noticeable, having observed EMBT over a long period, almost from before, as you would say, from before it existed, that though the heroics relate to the sadly lost Enrique Miralles, Benedetta has done an extraordinary thing, which the result is there to see that almost the difference between the early work and the late work, I won't say it's imperceptible, but it carries through the same qualities. Maybe the drawings are a little different, but still in a certain tradition. Also, the construct of the exhibition intrigues me, because this sort of slightly, we use the English funny word gawky, G-A-W-K-Y, which means sort of, but this intelligently gawky mannerism, which one remembers from the Olympic Street and from the way in which the buildings for the Olympics that were done by the office had this quality of nearly collapsing but not collapsing. And it's a sort of highly intelligent loose fit, or development of the notion of loose fit. And you see it exactly here, and so that I can see that I would never do it this way, but the way that you can hang a new exhibition on an armature that is of this old construct. It interests me a lot. I know I'm not answering about drawing, but I'll come back to it eventually. And I'm also delighted that there are a number of friends here from many connections. I mean, there's Jeannie, Professor Jeannie, and her who's an amazing character, who we were with some months ago in Taiwan, and her students from Taiwan. And I could talk a lot about why I think Taiwan is an interesting architecture country. I'm also quite sure about the drawing tradition there, but certainly as constructed and as discussed. And Alice Laborel, who lives here in Madrid, was one of my best ever students at the École Spéciale in Paris, and appears in some of my books about drawing. And she's been living here and transmogrified from being an architect to a kind of animal reconstructor, or whatever you might call her drawings. Look her up on the internet. They're wonderful. And of course, you guys, who else should I? Josep Mias, who's made great inroads into the Bartlett after having been discovered again by the same set of connections. It's great to have, it's always nice to have a few friends sitting around, and then in a way, my remarks will probably turn out, and Catherine Spellman also from the connection, also teaching both in the Stadelschule and at the Bartlett again. So it's all the same people, really. I always think that it's all the same group of people. It's an endless family. But also welcome new members of the family sitting here. Now, apropos drawing, I think I was not a good drawer at college. You had to take, I really wasn't. Even in the small college that I went to before I went to the big posh school, the AA, I was at a little college, now the Bournemouth Arts University, for whom I've done 2 buildings, one of which is in the exhibition. But in those days, even in that little college, there were people who drew better than me, and they could draw dogs and horses and trees and all that stuff. I was a plodder, and I was so grubby as a drawer. I used to have a harder and harder pencil because I used to make the paper dirty until I learned about the pen, the ink pen, and then I was away and free. And I have, therefore, I knew that drawing was important. Now, this is a complex issue because I think what is interesting again in this exhibition is how the models are also deeply significant. And there are certain things, I'm not mathematically clever enough to figure certain things out, and I can't really use the computer except for lectures. But I do like making models, and I do like discovering what happens three-dimensionally, spatially. And Enrique had the gift of being able to do that without even making a model. But the models in this exhibition are very important. And even the little sort of toy models that we brought, we felt were, even though they go beyond the scope of the things on the wall, we felt it was important to say these things are talking about three-dimensional conditions. But what I realized over the years is that I made not exactly a virtue of what I could not do, but I found tricks by which I could do certain things. And my drawings, even now, if you take a photograph of my board at home or my board in the studio, I have lots of, I think, what you call shablon, French curves, T-squares, anything that helps me do something. I've learned painfully to draw trees because I work with other people who can draw trees. And I watch what they did. It was what my teacher, Peter Smithson, would call the artisan tradition. You sit with a person who can do it. You watch how they do it. You try to do it. And then you sort of veer off on your own at a certain point, imperceptibly. The other thing, I think, is that you can do certain tricks, but I guess we learn this also from observing painters. There are certain painters, I would suspect, actually couldn't draw that well. And there are people who draw very well, who resort to technique, but don't, I think, fighting your way around a corner, I found is a very interesting and painful but fantastic experience, to fight your way around a tricky corner and compose it. Now I guess I'm doing a lot of drawings because there isn't much work in the office. So I'm doing a lot of drawings, and I'm exploring certain ideas that have always been sitting at the back of my mind. And this is where I think I need the slides. I can't see the slides. I'll move where I can see them.
Wait a second.
Is there a... Oh, who's pressing the button?
That's it.
Yeah, so these two pictures are book covers, actually. They're both on the wall, but the left-hand one was the cover of the catalogue from I had a very big exhibition at the Louisiana Museum in Denmark about 4 years ago. And that really kicked off a whole series of exhibitions that I've been having. And this drawing is, if you look at it carefully, there are vestiges of the plug-in city. There is, in fact, a megastructure. It's a very softened megastructure. And there are vestiges of the tradition of the capsule, which is, of course, central to the old archigram conversations. But then the idea is also obfuscated, and quite deliberately obfuscated, by the putting of layers in front of the objects, of creating mystery. And I have this reiterant thought that to just see something, and there it is, and it's obviously what it is, ho-hum, end of conversation, it's not very interesting. I like the implicit. And there's a wonderful word in German, Blick, the little instantaneous look. And the fact that I think the Gothics understood this, certainly in English Gothic. There were many conditions in which you could see the shadows of things, you could see the implication of something, and then you could see the light, but you couldn't necessarily see the light source. And this kind of thing has interested me. The right hand is also a book cover, and unfortunately there seem to be problems in bringing the book here. I hope that there will be some way of it being sold in Basel. Maybe it's on sale down the road here. And this is a new book called Peter Cook, Art of Architecture, which celebrated by an exhibition I had in London 2 months ago. And this is taking the tradition of the Hall of Columns, which is a sort of reiterant historical reference, the notion of the enclosed space defined by the insistence of the columns. So I have a Hall of Columns, and then I pervert it. The columns are all not what they seem, and they melt into these fey, drifting terraces. Are they solid or are they not? And then but it is a public space, so lots of people walking around. It could well be a bank or a railway station, or a mall even. And then I take this perverted object, this drifting building that cuts across it, which is reminiscent of some of those conditions you get in Tokyo railway stations or London railway stations when they're under repair, and you get a kind of temporary condition that moves across. And I like its perversity. Just when you're getting comfortable with the idea of the hall of columns, and they're all regular, they become something else. And just when you're getting comfortable still with the lower part, which appears to be circumspect, it's violated by this other thing. And the other thing has a dynamic because there's some secret condition that's spewing out of it. So it's sort of spooky, but the people are quite happy. They're going about their business. I like that irony. Another thing I would say about people appearing in the drawings, which they do in my recent drawings, is that I think over 50 years of teaching, or 60 years, whatever it's been, you get to be very interested in people. And anybody who knows me privately would know I'm full of prejudice or analyses of different categories of people, different nationalities, and different types. You become an amateur psychologist. And I get more and more fascinated watching people. You're never bored at a bus stop, because you look across the street, there's somebody trying to do a modernist building, getting it horribly wrong. You look down the street, there's a lady with a dog, and the dog's playing up, and the lady's responding in whatever way is her character. You're never bored. Next slide. And this is a drawing that is not in the exhibition. It's really meant to speak for about 40 or 50 drawings, which we didn't have room to put into the exhibition. And this is a period about three or so years ago when I was fascinated by, as I have been in a lot of drawings, and I eliminated them from this exhibition. There wasn't space. I have done a lot of drawings, more symbol, in landscape, with the impregnation of landscape by the built object, or the quasi-built object, or the landscape object that turns out to be a building, or the landscape condition which has a structure or a physiognomy of some sort which hints at architecture, or an architectural object which has a physiognomy that hints at the vegetation. This is a long conversation over many drawings. This is a typical one called Tough Landscape, Friendly Forests. And if you look carefully at the forest part, you find the little buildings on the edge of the forest, which is very much in the tradition of small gatehouses that you would get at the edge of large parks of rich people, and probably in French landscape as well, where you have somebody owning a large forest and a grand house or castle somewhere in the middle there. But the edge is articulated by this little cottage which talks to the outside world. I'm fascinated by it. There's a book done by the renowned Simon Shamar on landscape and memory, which talks a lot about the overtones of vegetation in the forest and the spooks and the sexual overtones, etc., etc., etc. And I think I don't go from books very much, but it articulates in a much better way than I can this whole fascination one has with the forest. I'm a lowland person. I'm a coastal region lowland person, North European. I hate mountains. I'm scared of islands. I don't drive a bicycle, etc. Next. I'm the ultimate wimp. Now, this is a very recent drawing with a funny history, because half of the two-thirds of the left-hand side of the drawing were done about a year or more ago, and I'd done another right-hand side. I just didn't like the right-hand side, so one day I got a scalpel, cut off the right-hand side, glued in another piece of paper, and redesigned the right-hand side. And it's got one of the most takes on the internet of all my drawings. It hasn't been exhibited until today, actually. In the last three exhibitions since it's been finished, I didn't hang it. I think what I take, the generic thing is I take a very normal condition, particularly in the south of Europe, which is a very narrow street indeed. I remember going to Cadiz, for example, and being really struck by this extraordinary thing that the narrowness was so intense. You almost never saw the sky. The sky was just a graphic almost. And you don't get that in the UK or in Northern Europe so much, very rarely. Here, so that sets the tone. It is a normal condition with an extremely narrow street coming into what is probably a plaza. And then there's another mysterious street running, we know not quite where, off. But the other thing about it is the language. I did a competition about a year or so ago in which I started to use triangulation, which I haven't used much in the past. And I got kind of hooked on it. I became hooked on the combination of a triangulated geometry, sometimes breaking out into flat surface. So it's to do with language. It's also to do with putting that language into a very normal urban condition. And people are walking dogs and all the things that I have. I think there's even somebody on a bicycle. Yep. And this is a more recent one. Clearly, all those guys are rushing into the tube, into the subway on the right. These people enjoying the pleasures of a rather expensive downtown club. And then another feature of several drawings that I haven't shown, which is pyramidal apartment blocks with a lot of vegetation on them. And I come into detail here, and I start to break that habit open. And so this is a drawing sort of exploring certain combinations. And then there's this hovering red thing on top. Now, my wife, Yael, many years ago, did an installation here in Barcelona with a big blue inflated hand. And I guess this is inspired by her project, actually, the notion of this protective, is it a monster or is it a friend? And it floats, which, of course, in a way goes back to the balloons in the archigram period drawing, the balloons as a protective element. Yep. Ooh, that's a weird one. What? Well, that's rather interesting slide. Yeah, well, that was a nice one. Yeah. Now this is quite a new one, and it's starting another conversation which I'm not quite sure where it's going to lead. It's a little bit breaking out of other formulas, and it's looking at the possibility of an artificial forest. So it has some of the conditions of a forest in which people are walking into the forest and possibly getting lost in it. But the forest is not made of trees. It may even be made of artificial lighting. And another theme of mine, which is vegetation, which is not necessarily real vegetation. I quite like the idea of artificial vegetation being woven into normal vegetation. It doesn't matter, it just looks like vegetation. I'm not a purist. The colour on this slide is completely wrong, actually, but never mind. Next. This is another new one, and it goes into different geometry from that which I have used usually. I'm still at the age of 89 exploring, trying things. I'm not quite sure whether they're going to come off. And this is a piece of a project that is really a hotel or apartment block that goes into the sea. And now we go to a slide that's not in the exhibition, has not yet been in any exhibition, but comes after that, which is actually an explanation of what the context of that. And it's moored off the edge of Bournemouth on the eastern side. And there's a series of sandbanks, really, and platforms. And then the apartments are in a series of these 4 or 5 blocks. And they have gardens on the top. Again, the coloration of the slide is not doing it justice. These are parks. And you can see that sometimes there are dome lights or similar things in the park. So it's to some extent percolated. And then in some cases you can come straight down the tube to a boat stop, or you can come straight down the tube onto a diving platform, or you can come straight down the tube onto a sandbank, which is an extension of the sand anyhow. So that, and I notice, I keep following the internet, this has had the most posts I've ever had on a drawing. But it's not one of my fancy colour drawings. It's much more sort of general purpose architectural, plan, section, elevation kind of thing. And I'm intrigued by that. That maybe there's a certain moment at which one comes off the pictorial drawing, even if the pictorial drawing is carrying a lot of architectural ideas, and to say, here's a dead plan, here's the plan, here's the elevation, da-da. Okay, I think we're nearly there. The built objects, the 2 pavilions, this was a commission from the park last year for Play Pavilion, and so this is one of the few things I've done that 50,000 people saw in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it was. No, 2 months, I mean. And it was with the Lego company, and so it exploits the Lego itself. We worked a lot with the Lego people in Prague to design the secret elements. Again, a little bit of the thing of all is not what it seems. You see hints of what's inside in the middle. You have to come in to really see it. Next one. My wife yesterday said, you haven't got a very good slide of the interior of the Bournemouth studio, and this is a better one. It's difficult to photograph. This has been probably my most published building since the Kunsthaus in Graz, and the university puts it in all its publicity. So it was a very expensive building, I have to admit that. You get what you pay for. And the other thing I think was in contradistinction to what I've been generally talking about, I have done a calm white building, completely white. Doing so much white so carefully is very expensive. Doesn't come cheap. But it's totally blue on the outside and totally white inside. And it's marvelous each time I've been there to do something. It's always in heavy use. Recently we were down there and there was a whole group of Japanese from a Japanese school in exchange, all doing things with wooden blocks. Next time we were down there the other day, they were 2 people dressed in costume and about 40 people drawing these exotic-looking people. So it's great to see. It's very heavy. It's constantly having to be repainted because so many people use it. But it's probably my favorite of my projects. And so that's why I brought it to see. I think that's it. Yes? Yeah, oh, yes, seaside. Returning to your theme, by the water, of course, I am a seaside boy. I've lived part of my life in seaside towns. And this is a very exotic seaside town in which people are being bathed with special soap and ointments and smells, and there are cones of spray that people go into for health purposes. End of conversation.
So you see that we are very, very happy that you are here with us, and we have your exhibition downstairs, and I think also we can. It's like an exhibition of paintings, isn't it? That people can buy somehow.
Oh, yes, they're available. I don't know what rate we give them here, because the ones that are on the wall are simply printouts onto, general purpose paper, but we do have a system of selling prints, and you get in touch with my studio and we should have a...
Fantastic.
Yeah, so if you go to EMBT, maybe you should put notices up on the wall where they can
exactly.
contact,
we will explain how,
if
you wish to have a
and some of the ones on the wall have not been shown before anywhere, so they are new to they're not even being sold in the Royal Academy or in dealers or anything, which some of the others are. Some you have to go through a dealer, but some you come straight from us.
They're really beautiful, and we are very happy that we have this opportunity to have you here, and fantastic. So maybe now we can tell a little bit about the other exhibition, which is next to yours, and it's on this water thematic. And usually we do with Gianpel Dell'Angelo, who is around here once a year, a kind of a 3 days dedicated to water thematics in architecture. And this year, we thought that this year of architecture, so we took water projects from the archives, and we have old projects that we started with Eric, dealing with harbor, the Frankfurt harbor, that you remember that at the time in the 90s we were asking for a new development, how to imagine, and then the Bremerhaven harbor, and then we ended up building in the Hamburg Hafen. So we have this Hafen City project which started after the many projects we did, and which is now finishing after more than 20 years. And there are many other projects from the past where I think you have to go and discover. And the best part of the exhibition, for me at least, is sometimes to get in touch with some of the hand draws by Rick, which are so fine and so special. And I think Rick and Pieper, they have this love for drawings, which is something that they share. So I think I don't want to explain too much. The presentation by Peter was fantastic. Now I think the best thing is to go around the two exhibitions, to enjoy and to have some wine and food and chats all together. And so we can talk informally while visiting. Thank you to everybody.